Hi there, and welcome along to this bonus midweek edition of the Gersnet Podcast, a totally free and independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where the content is always absolutely free. And that free content is not just the podcast that we have here at Gersnet, but if you head over to the website at www.gersnet.co.uk, you'll find a whole host of great content there as well, including articles, social media, a friendly discussion forum, and an excellent history archive as well. If you're joining us live tonight, it's just gone 9 o'clock on Wednesday, the 18th of August. And we are here to look ahead to the Rangers Europa League playoff qualifier first leg tomorrow night against Alashkert. So we'll be taking a wee look at what we can expect tomorrow. So if you are joining us live, then thank you for giving up your evening. If you're joining us, you can also get involved in the YouTube comments. We've got Frankie having a look at all the questions and comments that you have there. So please do fire those in. And if you're not with us live, well, the podcast is always available for download the day after the show goes out live. So that'll be from tomorrow morning. And that's on Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and also on Spotify. As I say, we're going to be looking ahead to tomorrow night's game against Alashkert in the Europa League. Sadly, it's not a Champions League game that we're previewing, but we're going to have to try and move on from Alec's horrendous predictions that he made last week. But before we get started on tonight's show, just to say that the show tonight is presented in partnership with footballprizes.co.uk. The guys over there are running a prize at the moment where the winner will get their choice of either a Sol Campbell, Willie Bolly, or a Nathan Patterson's signed shirt, and which one of those I've won. Tickets are £4.95, only 99 tickets are being sold. There's around about 65 tickets left at the moment, and the prize draw will happen tomorrow. That's Thursday the 19th at 8:30 p.m. Head over to their website at footballprizes.co.uk or check out the Gersnet Twitter page for more details. So to bring in my guest, the font of all European football knowledge, I'm sure he's going to have some wonderful facts about Armenian football for us. Alec Anderson. Alec, good evening. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine, Ross, for a man who's publicly shamed himself. The last time I was on this pod, I'd like to thank yourself and Frankie for giving me the opportunity to come back on and apologise to everybody. As a man on the Rangers jinx register, I really shouldn't have been getting carried away the way I did last time. I'm just going to try and claim that I got the Malmo and Dunfermline games mixed up. I think I said I was quite worried about the Dunfermline game. That could be a lot closer than we realise, and it would be romping the Malmo game. I think I actually said 4-0 at half time. So if I could just say, I just got them a bit mixed up.
Exactly.
And, that's all that happened. And please let me back on the show.
No, and for anyone who's not heard that podcast, firstly, it's probably the only time that I'm going to recommend you don't go back and listen to a previous show. But when Alex says that he disgraced himself, embarrassed himself on a previous show, that was simply by predicting that Rangers would destroy Malmo quite comfortably, rather than say took his pants off on air.
That was the show before.
That was the show before, and we were only too happy to have you back on. Right, Alec, we are here to discuss Armenian football. I must admit, I like my European trips, and one of the hardest things for me about COVID is, not being able to go and watch Rangers away in Europe. One of my favourite trips was Moscow. In the last couple of years, we went to play Spartak. The result wasn't good, but the day and the city and everything was fantastic. So for us to go to Armenia and have no fans allowed to travel, I know that some fans are going, but obviously officially no allocation will be given and no tickets being sold to Rangers fans. It's heartbreaking for me because Armenia, it would have been a phenomenal trip, a really interesting trip. But Armenian football is a little bit naturally quite foreign to me. I don't know a great deal about it. I'm sure you're a man who's done his research and knows what we can expect. So Alashkert from the capital of Yerevan, what can we expect from them tomorrow night?
They play in yellow. Next question.
Right, so if
Dingwall on Sunday, let's move on.
So Dunfermline are like Malmo, does that mean that Alashkert play in yellow, therefore Livingston?
I think so. No, I mean, I'm the same as yourself, Ross. Armenia, to me, it's the Kardashians. It's the System of a Down. It's, in terms of football, it's Henrik Mkhitaryan, who scored in the Europa League final. So there's a little link there. He scored in the Europa League final for Man United in 2017. You can get that I'm already trying to pad things out because my knowledge of Armenian football is disgracefully small, but I think that speaks to just what kind of impact Armenian football's had on the world game. I do know, I grew up knowing about Ararat Yerevan, who are the most famous name, most famous club name in Armenian football. They won, but that was during the Soviet era when they were part of the Soviet Union. Armenia is one of those former Soviet states. Amazing country, fantastic history, Christianity, first country in the world that had to be officially Christian back in the right at the beginning of the 4th century. They are on the border with Iran, Syria, Turkey. You've got Kazakhstan across the way. That's their big kind of derbies with Kairat Almaty. But you don't really know that many of their players. You don't really know that much about their clubs because they haven't really scaled the heights in any way. I think I go back looking at Ararat Yerevan, and they won the double in the 70s, the Soviet double, which was something else. But after that, really, you're struggling. Armenia, the national team. One quick way of looking at a quick reference for the state of the game over there. The national team is actually, confusingly, they're top of their group just now in the World Cup qualifiers, a group that contains Germany, Romania and Iceland. It's largely down to North Macedonia beating Germany in Duisburg in this qualifying campaign, but they're steadily on the rise, the national team. They're in the Europa, in the Nations League. They've always been a division below Scotland, but they've been promoted twice now, and they're the same league as Scotland, although they won't be in the same group. I've got a strange thing that I do. I like a bit of train spotting when it comes to the football. One of the few reasons to go and watch Scotland at Hampden over the last 20 odd years was clocking up all the UEFA nations. I basically realised I'd seen quite a few of the 55 UEFA member nations. I've seen quite a few clubs from the UEFA member nations playing against Rangers at Ibrox. So I think we've got Moldova at Hampden next month. I've got a ticket for that. If I go and see Kairat tomorrow, that's my first ever Armenian team. So after that, I've only got any kind of national team or club from Andorra or Kosovo, and that's me done all 55. So I'm a winner tomorrow night either way. But yeah, this team, it doesn't really help that they don't have much of a history themselves. This club, really strange history. Kind of formed 1990, then almost instantly dissolved in a town miles from Yerevan, the capital where they are now, and also named after another town that took refugees in during the infamous, I think it's always going to be associated with Armenia, the Armenian genocide with the Ottoman Turks. Killed a lot of people, killed millions back at the beginning of the last century. But this club, I think they formed in 1990, then I think they stopped playing after about a year. They dissolved themselves. They started again about 8 years later, dissolved themselves again. And I think basically they've been formed in 1990, but they'd only played like maybe 4 or 5 years of football before reforming it again and moving to Yerevan, the capital, in 2013. I think they're the plaything of a local businessman. And they don't have great crowds. No Armenian club side really does. And they've basically won. Suddenly they've won 4 leagues in the last 5 years. They're reigning champions of Armenia. That's why they've ended up in the Champions League. They've dropped down into the Europa League, and they're going to be, irrespective of what happens tomorrow night, they're going to be the first ever Armenian side to play group stage football in Europe. So they're in total bonus territory, whereas we obviously, we're needing to get our act together. We can't be dropping into the Conference League. We're trying to maintain now where we were last season. So it's going to be interesting, but they are pretty much a mystery to us.
Mm-hmm. The way that you sort of describe yourself as a wee bit of a train spotter there with the 55 UEFA, and I have something similar around that fascination with football stadia. I love the different types of grounds, and I don't know if anyone's Googled the Alashkert Stadium, but it's a very old-fashioned, I guess, Eastern Bloc Soviet style, probably an old athletics ground. But above the main stand, there's almost like ramparts or something from like an old Colosseum. It's a fascinating place, and any Rangers fans that are braving the trip to go out there, because that's a long way. I imagine there's a fair few connecting flights to get to Yerevan. I mean, that's real dedication and passion. Probably wouldn't expect anything less, but I think it'll be a real treat for the boys that are heading over there. As you say, Alec, they will be, and we will be playing group stage football, European group football up until Christmas, which is good. But yeah, Conference League considering the draw that we were given in the Champions League, is not really a silver lining for us. And we'd probably be starting to think about focusing on the league, were we to not get through this tie. But given the fact that Alashkert do not have a successful European history, and I was looking at this earlier, they've played 2 Scottish clubs in European competition in the past, St Johnstone and Celtic, fairly comprehensively beaten by both. Is there any excuse for Rangers to not progress here? I mean, you can look at ties like Malmo and you say, yeah, we should be beating them, but that's going to be a tough game. A tie like Alashkert, is there any excuse for us not getting through this?
No, I don't think there's any excuses. I don't get me wrong. I have my little moment of confidence once every decade. It's usually in the European Cup, and it always comes back to bite me in the arse. So I had it last week with Malmo, and it bit us all in the arse big style. But with this, just looking at it empirically, just looking at the facts objectively, we should be pretty much doing to Alashkert what we did to Dunfermline. The actual experts, remember young Patrick Caskie that we had on before the first leg against Malmo. If you look at Patrick's Twitter account, it's absolutely fascinating. I needed to go away for a kind of 3-week day release course to actually understand some of the use of statistics in there. It's all beyond an old man like myself. But the basic message he was putting across was they're kind of Scottish Championship level. Now, if you look at what we did to Dunfermline aren't the greatest team in the Championship right now. Proud old club, but in a bad way just now, going through one of the kind of yo-yo phases. But we would be putting out, you would think, a slightly stronger team than we did on Friday. So, and I know it's become we'll talk about it later, but it's become almost like a bigger story with this tie is, are we going to get up enough of a scoreline to let us rest players ahead of the first Old Firm game of the season, which takes place the Sunday after the second leg? I hate that kind of thing. I know that's a cheek after my stuff about the Malmo game, but I generally hate not focusing 100%, as the manager was saying today, on the next opposition and just taking it literally one game at a time. We have to deal with them. I have a funny feeling that Alashkert, they played Kairat Almaty before. And I'm sorry to do this, mate. I maybe owe you one from that infamous night you asked me for a start about Hearts in the Cup final in '96, but 95, so 96. But they actually beat St Johnstone. That was Kairat. That was Alashkert's first ever game in Europe, and they lost 2-1 at McDermott, and then they beat them 1-0 at home, and it's. That was the first ever game, and that was the first season they won the league as well. I think that was the kind of result that pushed them on. It was a massive result for Armenian football. We'll not get too cocky about that either, if that's a massive, because we couldn't have beat St Johnstone in the bloody Scottish Cup at Ibrox last season. So fair play to them. And they then played Kairat Almaty from Kazakhstan the next round, and Kairat put them out. And I think it's just across the Caspian Sea, beyond Azerbaijan's their big rivals. Obviously, they've got a bit of a war going on with Azerbaijan and Armenia, but just over the Caspian and Kazakhstan, there's a bit of history there. We're talking about the stadiums. The other big stadium, the stadium that they played Kairat in the last round is probably the same one you're talking about yourself, mate. It's the National Stadium. The current National Stadium got capacity about 14,000. But previously, the previous stadium to that National Stadium, I think it's still there. It holds about 50,000 now. Its record attendance is an old superstructural kind of Soviet brutalist concrete massive stadium, and its biggest ever crowd was for Ararat Yerevan, the other big team the biggest team in the capital, against Kairat Almaty. There was like 70,000 there for that match. I don't know if it's a Soviet League match or even just a friendly, but there's a bit of kind of history there, and I think that's a bit of kind of hatred almost, and that's inspired them, obviously, in the last round to beat Kairat, which has done us a favour, hopefully, and that it's a long enough journey getting to Armenia, but it's about half the length of Western Europe again to get to Almaty in Kazakhstan. So I think that's been massive for them, and I think that's what's actually pushed them to. Kairat also had a couple of players sent off. It's going to take extra time, and I think it's just been like probably the biggest result in the history of Alashkert was when they beat Kairat last week, and I'm hoping it's drained them I'm hoping it's as good as they'll actually get, and I'm hoping, okay, that they've got nothing to lose tomorrow. That could be a dangerous thing, but I'm hoping it's that kind of nothing to lose where they just don't think it's worth trying to put up with what Rangers do to them. Just if you would hope that if we can just get that intensity back, fire into them straight away. Again, I'm getting into Malmo prediction territory here, but it should, the evidence is there that overruns most teams below Rangers level in Europe.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, though. You look at Rangers' European pedigree the last few seasons, and the performances that we've put in, the teams we've beaten, there's no reason that Rangers need to fear this tie. And yeah, if we go out and play the way that we've played in Europe over the last 3 or 4 years, there's absolutely no excuse for not getting a good result here. And I'm glad that you referenced the Old Firm, the Celtic tie, a few days after the second leg, which is in Armenia. And I think, to me, that hammers home the importance of tomorrow night. Build up a good result, a 3-0, a 4-0, and then rotate the squad. Keep, leave players at home, keep legs fresh. But yeah, maybe that's getting a wee bit ahead of ourselves. I guess the next question then, Alec, is how do we set up for this? Because I think it's fair to say the start of this season have maybe struggled to find the right combination of midfield and front three. There's been a wee bit of chop and change. There's definitely been players unavailable or not quite match fit. How would you like to see us, all being well and all players being fit again, how would you like to see us attack this one?
Yeah, just kind of all-out attack, basically. I don't know. I think there's a couple of questions, as you say. We can't really settle. I mean, the manager, I don't think, can really settle in a first team yet. I don't know. There seems to be a few underlying problems at which I can only really guess, the same as most other Rangers fans. We don't know if it's maybe a wee hangover from the Euros. Now, that's difficult because I think collectively our players played about 45 minutes at the Euros, our representatives there, and it was all at Hampden. In fact, the first Rangers player I got to cheer on live in the flesh in the last 16 months was Big Hollander when he came on at Hampden. I was at the game at Hampden. Ukraine were playing Sweden, and again that didn't do him a lot of good either. So I'm just a jinx all round. But I don't know if it's been it's the worst of both worlds, where young Patterson, Barisic, Hollander, they're having to go with the squad. They're going to the hotels, they're doing all the travelling, they're doing all the training at the Euros, but they're not actually getting the game time, so they're not even getting the sharpness out of it. Maybe under Borna and Big Phil, there's probably maybe underlying injury problems or whatever, but I don't know if Borna seems a bit off it. He seems a bit off it these days. His delivery's been terrible. That being said, it's a quick ball from him from a free kick that does actually to Ryan Kent that sets up an opening goal at Ibrox against Malmo. But Big Phil, I don't think was far from the worst in Sweden against Malmo. There's a lot of Rangers fans unhappy with the fact that he didn't play in the second leg. And we're thinking maybe it was Balogun because we're expecting to press Malmo for the whole game, and Balogun's got a bit more kind of midfield nous about him, so he's going to go forward, and of course he ends up being the scapegoat for at least one of the goals that we concede. But I think there's a lot of kind of. I'm also can't help getting it. There's been so much talk about players going if we don't get into the Champions League, if we don't make the group stage of the Champions League, and these players, I think there's been no kind of uprising, no real kind of nobody's been going to the media. We know what Alfie's agent's is a bit naughty, but Alfie himself's has been fantastic in his attitudes to come back. There seems to be no real kind of malice between the club and any of the players, and it's almost as if I can't help thinking there's been an agreement with a few players. Look, we'll look at it again if we get into the Champions League. And even if those players have the best will in the world, for instance, Connor Goldson, they're thinking, I want to stay at Rangers. If it's in your head for a whole summer that you might have to leave, you're going to start picking out your house, down south or whatever it is you're thinking about leaving. It's going to get in your head. These are just, this could just be complete nonsense. It's just we're all kind of theorising as to what went wrong, because that was a game last week against Malmo, which has left me flattered, and I've never felt. I haven't felt like that since we went out to Progress in Luxembourg. But basically, that was the last season we had without Steven Gerrard. So it's almost like a result of that. It's a testament to how well Gerrard's done. We weren't expecting that second leg last week. to go the way it did. I think Haji's got to play if he's fit. It's ironic. I think the sharpest, we started really sharply against Livingston, and it all kind of, I think the momentum that we've been seeking went right out the window when he took that injury shortly after he'd scored in that first half. I know he's not got the speed, but I think against an Alashkert, he will be quick of mind. He'll be more than quick enough for them. You're looking at Wright for speed as well. Alfie, I think, has just got to start, and that's all there is to it. And I think it's in midfield, really. I'm assuming we're going to go. I wouldn't be bothered if it's Balogun or Hollander. I don't think we're going to be under enough pressure to require Hollander, but I think he's actually getting to the point with him that he might need match fitness. Big Phil, unless there's an underlying problem there, he needs to get him playing just for the sake of getting him time. You've got Steve Davis. Obviously, we've not got Glenn Kamara, and that's where I start thinking you're going to get Ryan Kent involved as well. And I would like Aribo in there. And you're thinking, should we have anybody holding? Should we have Lundstrom basically? Well, he's not been very good at holding. From what I've seen, he's great going forward. So I think Steven Davis is almost sweeper at times, as well as our most advanced. But he's everywhere. I think he'll take care of enough, and that Big Golson will tidy up well enough. I'm sounding overconfident, but I think it's just a fact that what we're playing against isn't strong enough. And I would have Barisic, Tavernier. I know we're starting to think, should Nathan Patterson and Big Calvin be starting? But I would get Borna and Tav back in there, and hopefully get the two of them back up, get their juices flowing again, and get them pumping, and we can get the young boys out in the second leg, hopefully.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I think Calvin Bassey at the start of this season has looked excellent through pre-season into competitive games. I thought he was really, really strong against Dunfermline, and I thought that the manager spoke really well about both the young fullbacks today. They're doing everything that he's asking them to do in training. They're coming in and putting in performances. Nathan Patterson is an international footballer. We maybe sometimes forget that he's 19 years of age or something, and he's represented his country at a major tournament. Is it a case then of bringing, because I think it's fair to say, I think Barisic has dreadfully underperformed the first 3 or 4 games of the season. But is it fair to say that Barisic, Tavernier as well, keeping in that boat, that you put them into this game because they might need the confidence boost that a game like this could provide them? I mean, it's not a game that we want to undervalue or where we can be overconfident enough to rotate and put the B team in, but it's also one where we need our best players on form, and at the moment I don't know that we have that.
We've got to win, and I'm saying this. I don't like to look too far ahead. You've got to take it one game at a time. I'm now going to completely go back on that. We have to factor in the possibility that this could be an easier opponent than we're used to. And by the way, can I just say I think the Malmo game is one of those moments where we've had in the kind of programme of progression we've had since 2012, where we're trying to get back to what we were. We're trying to get back to what we recognise Rangers as. And I was as guilty as anybody, rightly so, of thinking when we won that league title, that was it. We are back, especially the way we won it. But I think it's one of those little reset moments. Maybe a bit like Hibs in the Scottish Cup final. Maybe a bit like Progress under Kashinya. We played them in Europe and they put us out. Where you're thinking, for us to come from where we were to get back to what we were is going to take a hell of there's going to be a lot of pain along the way. And I think what we miss sometimes is that the biggest markers of improvement are their disappointments. Now, I've seen we've been put out a cup by another team in sky blue shirts and white shirts, but forfeit in the League Cup at Station Park should be a lot more embarrassing, a lot more humiliating, a lot more painful than going out in the Champions League. But somehow the pain's more acute because Rangers are supposed to be a Champions League team. And we were all just glad to have a football club back at the time. Forfeit we were in the same division as Forfeit. They weren't even it wasn't even a team from the lower league at that point. But I think that's what it is. I think when the pain starts to get more kind of public and more awful, almost like getting scalped in Old Firm games, is actually better than, beating Stirling Albion at home, which I think is something we only managed once in the lower leagues. And it's that what we missed last Tuesday night. And don't get me wrong, it was a massive opportunity, and I still don't understand why we lost the game. I've got a few theories. But what we've missed is the fact that Steven Gerrard started having to perform miracles to get us into a Europa League group stage. And now we're looking at, basically, we're playing Dunfermline to get into the Europa League group, so we'll get one game to do that. And I think we've got to hang on to that. I'm never going to be down on Steven Gerrard. I'm never going to be down on those players after everything they did for us last season. And it's been a mammoth task. But we do now have a tie that we would have dreamt. Even last season, when COVID was restricting us, we had one round less to play, and COVID was restricting the ties to one leg. We had to go away to Holland, away to a Dutch team, and then with Galatasaray at home to get into the Europa League group stage. It was massive. To have a team of Alashkert standard between us and the Europa League is actually a massive sign of improvement. The manager himself has said we're not, maybe just proved the other week that we're not a Champions League team yet, and we could, do you really want to be getting, Chelsea or whoever coming to Ibrox and seriously scalping you and putting a serious dent? We need the money. But there's a bit of a reset. Even what I wasn't aware when I got into the ground of what was happening over at the Govan, how bad it was. But I think there's been a lot of praise coming to the team, a lot of praise coming to the club in general over a season where everybody wasn't there. But it was all thoroughly deserved. Everything's been fantastic for the last year, and everybody down, even the fans that thought it was all right to boo the team off at the end. Even the bloody ball boys being too fast, giving the ball back to Malmo players. Everybody's had to have a wee reset, I think, after last Tuesday, and it's no bad thing as long as we go on to win the league this season and get ourselves straight into next season's Champions League. It's no bad thing. It's another one of those breathing points that you're taking the air as you're heading up the mountain, kind of thing. But I think, Alashkert, we've got to get them done in. We've got to dispose of them quickly, and I think we also have to see that it's. Do you know? I know what you're saying. I'm actually, a part of me is thinking if we could start the way we did on Friday, I think Bassey and Patterson give us an energy and intensity. I would almost want Bassey and Patterson to start tomorrow night and get the scoreline matched up, and then we're bringing on Barisic and Tavernier second half to get them some game time, and hopefully if you get a good enough score, Barisic and Tavernier start at Dingwall, and then we can get the young boys out over in Armenia. I think we've got the options just now. I'm still a bit confused as to what's going on. There's a slight malaise with the team, but I think it's. I would go over strongest possible team to start with, but I understand exactly why you're saying what you're saying there, Ross. Because we're fullbacks. Tav was good against Livingston. He set up a couple of goals against Livy. And I'm not going to get, after everything he's been through, what he's done for the club. I feel terrible. Even criticising the man, but we have to look at what's been happening, and I think the manager will know what's required to get everybody at their funk.
Yeah, and that's always, whenever we have these kind of questions on the show. Should we rotate? Who should we play? Should we be thinking about a game at the weekend? Should we be thinking about the Old Firm? The answer is always the same, isn't it? It's always play the strongest team for the match in front of you. And I have no doubt. I get the sense from Gerrard's press conference today that that's always going to be his approach. I've got a game. I'm not going to think about Ross County. I'm not going to think about Celtic. I've got a game tomorrow night to go and win, which is vitally important in terms of finances, in terms of club exposure. So that's priority, and we'll worry about the rest when we get there. Very, very briefly, and Alec, just before we wrap up, there's been some news today that's not been confirmed anywhere. Gerrard mentioned in his press conference that it looks like we're getting closer to a centre midfield coming in, and I don't think that's necessarily a surprise. There's been a lot of talk about this Joey Veerman chap coming over from Heerenveen in Holland, but it seems that in the next couple of days we might be getting closer to announcing. And it sounds like it's not going to be Joey Veerman, but it might be this Janino Bacuna from Huddersfield. Now, I'm going to spring this on you. I feel really bad because I'm not sure if you've been able to do any prep on this or not, but what do you know about this chap and what he might be able to bring to the squad?
Zero. Absolutely zero. I'll be honest. I've been ashamed to look at anything to do with Rangers since the Malmo game, since my predictions my bold fake tempted predictions for that game. No, I've got to be honest, Ross. I mean, I saw the press conference today. For some reason, I think I was too busy looking up. I started looking up famous Armenians. I saw something about the Kardashians, and I was on that for quite a while for some reason. So I get distracted. But no, he's made it pretty obvious, the manager, that he's looking for another midfielder. By making it obvious, I mean, he said, I'm looking for another midfielder. So yeah, that's good. Is this chap, is he a kind of holding midfielder? Does he pile on? Because it's Ryan Jack that I'm missing right now more than anything else.
It's a strange one. So the articles that I've read, because I don't know a great deal about the guy. He's 24 years of age, so a good age to be brought in. He's got 107 appearances for Huddersfield, many of which obviously would have been Premier League, many of which would have been in the Championship. 43 appearances last season, having a hand in 9 goals, and played in, according to this article from bootroom.com, played in numerous positions all over the park. So it seems like it's a little bit of versatility that he might bring. And that, to me, that's interesting when I don't know if you heard John Lundstrom's press conference today, but Lundstrom suggested that he's been asked to play in a slightly different role than he was used to playing at Sheffield United. Right. And maybe Gerrard's not comfortable asking Lundstrom to play that role anymore from what he's seen in the first few games of this season, and just wants to bring in someone who has a bit of versatility across the midfield, whether that's sit back and hold or box to box or really press forward, dynamic attacking midfielder. The way that the articles that I've read suggest that that's kind of, he's a bit of a utility man. I don't necessarily like that phrase, but maybe that's what we're getting here.
No, that would do. You know, I mean, that's super. I mean, obviously, I think between Ross Wilson and Steven Gerrard, our signing policy has been pretty shit hot. You know, in general, you know, we've done really well, and I just feel as if maybe you're just looking at what's not there. You can't help focusing on that. But Glenn Kamara, I feel, has been our biggest miss in the European time. Now, Glenn Kamara played knowing that he was going to be rested in midweek against Dundee United when we lost that game. But you know, there was a few that were off the boil that day. He can't be blamed for that. But at the same time, I can't start saying that he's the answer to everything. He's the reason we went out in Europe. And I think it's worth remembering, by the way, just the general disgrace of the fact that we don't have Glenn Kamara because he was racially abused, basically. If he's punched that guy in the mouth, well, I hope it was a gudgeon. I hope he landed a proper one on him, because the scumbag deserved it. And I think it's absolutely shocking that a man who was basically in shock, you know, has been banned for what someone else has done to him during the game. But I think it has cost us. I think Ryan Jack as well, we could have really done with him just now. I like Lundstrom when he came on against Livy. You know, and it's not always a bad thing. It's something, as I said, I was joking about putting Lundstrom in kind of Koulibaly quarantine, because we've had players who've come in and started off looking absolutely fantastic, and we've quickly found out, no, they're not. So if he's taking a bit to adjust, that's fine. But I feel as if he was a bit to blame for the goal against Dundee United, the failure to kind of track back. I know a lot of people are giving him grief for the goal, and when the goals in Malmo as well, you know, and I can see their point of view. I thought it was kind of unfortunate with that. He had 2 players to mark, but no, he's not. He's blown hot and cold. Absolutely rasper of a goal the other night, and did generally well against Dunfermline, but that is Dunfermline. So we need something else in midfield. As you know, I'm a massive fan of having Kamara, Davis and Jack in there, but it's like I'm starting to feel that will almost kind of never happen again. You know, you're starting to feel Ryan Jack's going to be, he is officially injury prone now, and it's always taken him longer to come back than anticipated. When he comes back, he's instantly brilliant. But I think he gives us a real base, those 3, in which we can pretty much do anything. I think we're fantastic with those 3 in there. But we need something else in midfield, and I think I fully trust the manager and his choices. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, we arguably do have a lot of options in midfield when everyone's fit and available. We've not even mentioned Scott Arfield. We've not mentioned Stephen Kelly. But
I know we get players but Scotty Arfield, I think he's suffering. He's at that age now when he needs to be playing regularly. And it's basically his game. His style is kind of box to box. He's very dynamic, and when he's on it, he is peerless. He's absolutely sublime. Scott Arfield, I love him. But he's just at that age now where it's taken him a bit of a while. Remember when Steve Davis came back to the club, it took him a good few months to get himself up to match fitness, and then he's pushing for Player of the Year. You know, he's absolutely sublime, and he's carried on that form into this season. So that's great. I think Scotty Arfield has suffered, and I know what you're talking about. This is part of the problem with this start to the season. We seem to have never really had our first team out there and getting. I know a lot of the boys, Gersnet and a lot of Rangers fans I talked to, like, why was Gerrard not playing his first choice team and a few friendlies, and then to have them up to speed. And the mark of the Steven Gerrard management period at Rangers for me has been how anytime anybody's thought there's been a problem, like we ended up finishing the league poorly or whatever, we're finishing our season without a trophy. The way we've started the following season has left me in zero doubt that every player at the club is on board with what the manager's doing. That there is this mass that, we've been a pre-season, our friendlies and the way we've started each season has got steadily better, quantifiably better season upon season. And this is the first one where it's kind of, I don't know. And even then, even in amongst all that, we've beaten Real Madrid, nominally, in a friendly. But we've beaten Real Madrid in this kind of stuttering pre-season and a stuttering start to the season. So I think the one thing we're missing about tomorrow night, never mind the fact it's the Europa League, never mind, what we're going to do, ahead of our game against Celtic and how the second leg plays into that. This is just about getting the second win in a row on the board. Just get a result, so we can get back to momentum, because that is the primary thing with any football club, really, any football team. It's all about momentum. To keep winning. But I think Gerrard is particularly good at just getting a team into a winning habit, into a winning mood. That's what his kind of game management requires, and we just need to get another good win on the board.
Absolutely, I think that brings us to a conclusion. So obviously Rangers against Alashkert first leg tomorrow at 8 p.m. I believe it's not on BT, it's not on Premier Sports. I think the only way to view this one is to either go to the game, and I think there are one or two tickets still available, or it'll be on Rangers TV as well. An interesting tie, absolutely, in terms of the opposition, a bit of an unknown quantity in terms of how we set up, particularly in the midfield. So I think, a lot to look forward to tomorrow night, and hopefully we can be celebrating a good result. As I say, that brings us to the end of the show, so I'll say a massive thank you to Alec for joining us once again and giving us the wisdom and insight that he invariably brings. The Gersnet Podcast will be back on Friday night when Colin and Stuart Weir will be here to look back on the Alashkert game and also look ahead to our trip up to Dingwall on Sunday. And then on Sunday night, I'll be back in the hot seat with John McCallum and debutant Gary Valentine, looking back at both games of this week and ahead to the week coming, which will of course bring the return leg out in Armenia, as well as the first Old Firm derby of the season. If you've been joining us tonight on the YouTube stream, thank you so much for giving up your evening. I hope you've enjoyed the show. As I say, please do head over to the website at www.gersnet.co.uk, get involved in the friendly discussion forum. You can also find all of your Gersnet contributors there. I hope you enjoy the game tomorrow night, and we will see you on the next show on Friday or the flagship show on Sunday. Until then, stay safe, and thank you very much for listening.